So, hi guys. Now, a few people have asked if I'd do a quick sort of sketchbook tour of some of my recent sketchbooks. Now, I haven't completed my current one for the year so far. It's a book that has a lot of pages, so I'm still working on filling it out. It's like a good sort of like 100, 200 pages long. So I thought might be nice instead to go over some of my completed sketchbooks from last year. See, I've always enjoyed myself looking over sketchbooks and sketchbook tours from other artists. I personally find it very helpful to not only see their process but also the mistakes they've made in sort of their development towards either creating a final piece or just from practice. I think it's always really good to remind ourselves that the art we see posted on social media such as Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, all that jazz is often very refined. It's the good bits, it's the bits that have been taken out because they're the ones that we are happy posting. It's really important to remember that not everything we make is perfect, and that's perfectly fine. Now for this tour I do have 3 separate sketchbooks. All will include some very incomplete items. There may be pages where I only have got like one little doodle on, because tend to be that I'll do like a really rough sketch or something and I don't like it, I'll just move on to a fresh page. Because I did a lot of digital work last year instead of traditional work, I only have 3 of these, so I hope that's okay and I hope you enjoy them. So let's get started. So all of these sketchbooks are some cheap sketchbooks that I got from Hobbycraft, mainly because I saw that they did the glittery set and I couldn't help myself. So I'm going to start with the Blue Sparkle one, which has my wonderful Lance from Voltron sticker, which was made by the beautiful Penguin's Bite. I'll put her description and her links down in the description so you can go give her a follow and check out her store. So the first page here are some like sort of rough tattoo design sketches for a couple of my sort of D&D characters. It was really important to sort of get some very key features down here, like the all-seeing eye and some of the text. I can tell you that it's all very important. I can't go too much into it in case any of my players are watching. But yeah, this is a really important element, getting this right as it is tattooed on one of the character's necks. As you can see from in the corner, there is a small sort of like design around his neck. But yeah, it took a couple of iterations to get this right. Moving on to the next page, we're going to go from some of my D&D stuff over to a sketch I did for one of my favourite artists, one of my friends, Rebecca Blackwell-Reed, so others known as RB Illustration. This is her boy Jacob, which I am absolutely in love with. I love him so much. I blame the fact that he's both grumpy and ace, and I feel that a lot, which is why we've got hashtag done in the corner. I fell in love with him after watching one of her videos where she described the character design with it. So this was just a quick way of me sort of sketching out a bigger idea for a piece I wanted to do for her as a sort of gift. Now, by the nature of his character design, there are some very complex bits. So at the moment, this sketch was me just simply pinning down sort of the composition design that I wanted to do for the piece. Now moving on from a character from someone else to my own character. This is another D&D character called Nick Silverholm. She was one of my first D&D characters. She's a half gnome, half drow. It ended up because of the world had a very interesting world state, as it was a homebrew from one of my friends. This was just me doing a small sort of drawing following a rather traumatic / painful session. As she was quite a young character, she was very naive. And yeah, the beginning of her journey was pretty unique in how it started. But I was very happy with how this piece came out as a nice sort of like pencil sketch, as it was also a good opportunity to practice some sort of emotion through body language, as well as sort of finessing some of her concept design as well. Now, this page here is one example of one of my concept work sort of pieces. So this is a character called Katerzania, who I am currently working on for some of my indie comic titles. So this was me just trying to pin down a general look for her. It's not a final look, but it's just me trying to nail down what I've got in my head. You might notice here that it's been drawn in blue pencil. I tend to favour using animator's lead at times, usually Stradler 0.5 blue lead, although I have been recently using the green one as well, and there'll be some green in this sketchbook. Alright, so this is a bit of an incomplete page. As you can see here, we've got a nice robotic arm, and this actually belongs to Jacob, which is actually part of the sketch further in my book. And this was me sort of trying to flesh out the design a bit more, because when I asked Rebecca for a sort of the design of his arm, it's actually a really complex piece of equipment. So I wanted to do a separate sketch just to sort of figure out the detail and how to transpose that directly onto a piece of artwork, when the plan I was given was sort of a very flat sort of 2D image, whereas I was trying to render it here and almost like a 3D. I also took this as an opportunity to sort out like individual details such as his eye patch and his watch as well. Alright, moving back on to some of my D&D NPCs. These are two of my favourites. This is Varnan and Devan. So we've got Varnan in the background with Devan sleeping on his shoulder. They are also some of my group's favourite NPCs as well. We have Varnan, who is a paladin, and Devan, who is his husband, who is a bard slash cleric. This was a piece of me just working mainly on body sort of language. One, to give my players something nice to look at, but also just as a really sort of cute pose to try and practice sort of couple interactions as well, which is really important. It's very, very difficult sometimes to try and draw people interacting. This is also probably one of my more completed sketches in my sketchbook, so you can always tell when there's been something that's really caught my eye because I'll focus on it. Anyway, so here is yet another bit of concept artwork, this time for Katarzynia's girlfriend, Mana. I'm still not happy with how she looks here. This is quite a rough sketch. Again, this is just concept work, just trying about getting down what you've got in mind. And yes, whilst I've not still nailed down her design, I did get a few things that I got quite right, which is like her face with her hair. I wanted it to be long, but I needed to make her more masculine. At the moment, she's appearing very, very slim, which is not the look that I was going for with this. So anyway, moving on. This is a good example of some of my thumbnailing pages. So the trick is to learning to draw faster and get complete pictures quicker, is to learn how to fail faster. And part of that is learning to thumbnail. So here you can see some really, really, really rough sketches of some compositions that I had in mind for a commission. And whilst you can't really tell much from these, it's just about pinning out really quick ideas to see which ones you want to continue on with and which ones you don't. So as you can see from here, the two at the top are the most fleshed out, whereas these at the bottom, I've not really continued. I found them a bit too complicated because, as you can see from here, even with the simple images, you can't really see what's going on, whereas with the top two, you've got a really good idea of what's happening because there's some really clear lines of movement and some really nice sort of compositional pieces with that. Alright, so these are some more of the polished designs. So you can see that the two pick here, and now I've like fleshed them out here. So there, I've just made them a bit more complicated. I've fleshed them out a bit more. I've made them a bit more detailed to see which one's going to work. So that one on the left is very clear in lines, whereas I actually prefer the one on the right. It's a bit more sort of detailed and conformed, but in the end, the commissioner chose the one on the left. Now, for those of you who have seen me at cons, you'll probably recognise this image. So for most pieces, I'll almost always pencil out sort of a thumbnail. So in this case, for my banner, which I sometimes have on top of my con table, I decided that I was going to do a pencil sketch first to see if my rough idea would actually work. And this gives me a really good idea ahead of actually putting in a lot of effort into doing a piece, whether it's going to work out. And in this case, I did a quick sort of sketch of the girl along with some like sort of very loose lines for the trees in the background, put my name, had a good figure out of if it's all going to sort of fit. And I would recommend this for anyone, anytime that you're actually looking at doing a bigger piece. Always thumbnail, always plan. It helps you work through things quicker. It also stops that thing where halfway through you're struggling through it and thinking it's not working right. So yeah, always remember, thumbnail, sketch it out, see if it works. It's not a waste of time. Alright, so here's yet another picture from my D&D game. This one featuring a PC. This is Feline Trickster's bard, Trix, as well as her romantic interest from pre-game. This is part of her backstory of a noble whose name is Max. So it's just been revealed some interesting details in the past game that we've had in regards to this, but I'm not going to spoil them here. But this was originally just a cute sort of snippet that I sent to Michelle going, here's an idea I had for a scene that would have happened. It was just a really loose pencil sketch where he gave her a necklace, and it was just one of those ones where it was easier for me to sort of draw out an image of what I had rather than writing out a scene for her. More D&D stuff. This time it is a couple of NPCs. So this is Annabella and Orion DeRolo, who are part of the government of Whitestone. So we have Annabella, who is the head of the Blunt Hunters Guild that is set up in Whitestone. She's the head, whereas her twin brother Orion is the current Grandmaster of the Grey Hunt. So the players met these guys a while back, and with the current arc, look to be heading back that way. It's unknown if these two are currently their enemies or if they're their allies. The important thing here with these drawings was that, one, it was to show my players what the characters look like, but for instance, the first time they met them, they were in their like sort of regalia, they were at a wedding, So these are sort of a concept of what they'd actually be wearing in that case. And actually one of the player characters actually got Annabella's sword, which is why I did a small sketch in the corners to show the player, before I got a chance to actually draw up the item properly, what sort of thing they'd be looking at having. So, yet another NPC from the current Whitestone arc. This is Beatrix Lowell. So this has been a character that's been introduced for a long while, and for ages the players have not known if she is the bad person or if she's the good person. And it's all up still in the air, with a recent reveal to the players that perhaps Beatrix is not nearly as bad of a person who they initially thought, and maybe she is also a victim of the circumstances that are currently going around. Here I was going for a character who was not necessarily the prettiest of characters. She's sort of the girl next door sort of look. And in the end I was reasonably happy with how this sketch came out to show my players. Now the next one is actually her brother Thomas Lowell, and this character has been very much, again, not sure if he's the good or the bad. All they knew in his backstory is that he was very sick, which is what the top images of him is, where he's a sickly individual. But most recently they've heard that he is now feeling a lot better mysteriously, and is now actively dueling individuals. So it's been interesting having these two sort of sketches to exemplify his previous stage, but also his current fitnesses as well. So here's a rather incomplete sketch. So you may have seen that throughout my sketchbook so far, there's been some pieces that have been very complete, other bits that haven't been. This is an example of one of my very quick, loose concepts. This was mainly for my players after they met a NPC who, because he may come back, I wanted him to have some sort of semblance of idea of what he sort of looked like, because as much as I like using descriptions, I always find that it's a lot easier to show some of the visual representation of what I mean. So yeah, in this case, whilst it's not very detailed, you do get the general sense of the character from this, from the body language, the very loose style of his clothing. So it's enough that I could present this to my players and go, this is what it looks like roughly, whilst I'm working on a more complete image for them to use. Also for me, as a sort of reference point, it gives me a lot to draw from if I come back to this character. A lot into reading into his personality just by how he holds himself and how he dresses. This is really important when you're looking at concept design. So for those of you who have followed me out for a little while, you will recognise this as the beginnings of the piece I did of Percy and Vex from Critical Role from Campaign 1. So for most of my sort of final digital pieces, they've mostly usually come from a sketch in my sketchbook. So in this piece, this was me just sort of trying to figure out the positioning and the composition of the arms, and I had an idea in my head what I wanted it to look like. But because of the nature of sort of the embrace, I knew that it was going to need me to sort of pin down where everything was. And that's always like important, like you don't need to bang out a piece of artwork great first time round. It's usually a process. So in this case you can see that, you know, there isn't a lot of detail. The faces are detailed, but the actual body is very much very sketchy and very sort of limited in what I'm showing. This was also one of my favourite moments from Critical Role. I'm a big Kalia shipper, so here we've got another incomplete page. This is very common in my sketchbooks. You can see that there is one image here that I just started and never finished. It didn't go the way that I liked. Whereas at the bottom we've got some jewellery concepts. Again, this is for my D&D game. So this was me doing some sort of jewellery concepts for a couple of players who had some new items that meant very specific things, and it was whilst again I was working on some of the more complex for the realised pieces, I thought, well, here's a quick sketch to show them what I meant by certain descriptions. As the rest of my players are artists, it's always very helpful for us to share sort of images more than descriptions. Now again, we've got another piece that some of you may recognise. It's another Critical Role piece. This is obviously during my time where I was massively into Critical Role. This was another moment which just made me laugh. So this was the what the moment when Tarion turned up, and this, for those of you who have seen it, know that this ended up being tidied up as a full watercolour piece. But originally this was just the concept sketch that I began with, and again it's drawn with the animator's lead. Because of the nature of I knew what I was looking for pose-wise, I knew it wasn't going to be the easiest, so here's just to sort of nail down the motion sort of side of it. Here we've got some more sort of sketches. This is me doing some design work, some sort of concept work for like sort of beach costumes. You can see that this has been inked in as well. This is with my Pentel brush pen that I have. It's a pen that I'm still learning to use. It's very variable in sort of the strokes that you can do, but I do recommend having a play around with it. It can be very fun. Here was just me also using it as a lining practice to sort of change the weight of it as well. Like many artists, I often feel that I struggle with same face syndrome, so I often do these sort of very rough, very hard and fast sketches at the back of my books as well. This is just looking at different profiles, trying to change different nose shapes to get myself out the habit of drawing the same nose over and over again. Now, fun fact, I used to actually hate drawing noses. It was one of my weakest elements of my pieces when I was younger. So I just kept on drawing them and pushing myself through it so that I would just get better and better and better. Now, this is super common in the back of my sketchbooks, is me utilising it as an area to practice my brush strokes. Especially with the Pentel brush tech pen, you can do so many different thicknesses. It's always worth practicing in the back. So here I'll do things from like cross hatching through to just practicing like the width of my strokes and seeing them getting bigger and bigger and bigger, because you can see here it goes from very thin to very thick. I'll also just practice trying to get that pressure right. If anyone's used a tablet, you always have to learn sort of the pressure differences pretty early on, but with this it's even more sensitive to the pressure. You have to be so light-handed and not heavy-handed with it at all. Anyway, that's it for Sketchbook 1. Hi guys, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. As you can see, I didn't do all 3 sketchbooks in the end in this video, as it ended up making the video very long, so I'll be doing separate videos, part 2 and part 3 of the sketchbook tour for another time as well, to spread it out. So once again, thank you ever so much for watching. If you would like to support me, please like and subscribe and hit that bell for the notification. And also, I would like to say thank you for all my patrons who've been supporting me this month. If you would like to become a patron, there is a link below in the description. They get lots of cool benefits each month, including sketch raffles, as well as getting to choose what I draw and input on my videos. So once again, thank you guys.